no one knows what it's like to live bravely as well as Drew. And he's created something really special down in Costa Rica. And he's here to share a little bit of what he's learned along the way. So I now give the floor to Drew. Thank you.
So I'd like to say first just thank you to Antonio, Rebecca, and Elena and Sam for inviting me down here and for putting on this amazing event. I haven't been to Mexico before, I haven't been to Valle de Bravo before. This place is amazing. It's like the mountains, the cobbled streets, the lake. I don't think I've ever been in a venue like this where you can actually look out at the mountains for inspiration while you're talking. It's incredible. Mostly what's really impressed me about being here is how nice everyone is. Everyone that I've met at the conference and in town and the restaurants, everyone's just really, really nice. So whatever you guys are doing, just keep it up. So what I'm here to talk to you guys about today is well, really two things. The first thing is I'd like to make the case for building a really successful business that can be personally, professionally, and financially rewarding without necessarily having to make it really big. And I would even argue that that perhaps is, in some cases, more sustainable environmentally and in terms of the local economy. The other thing that I'd like to do is just share with you some of the easy wins, some of the lessons that I've learned running Surfsymphony in the hope that they're things that you guys, as small business owners, can put into practice tomorrow, rather than necessarily big, high concepts, things that are actually useful to do tomorrow morning when you wake up and you go back to work. What I'm going to do is talk a little bit just about Surfsymphony. I'm going to try not to be too self-indulgent, but I'll just paint a little bit of a picture of what I've done and what we do. And then I'll go on to talk a little bit about what some of those lessons are, I think. And then at the end, we'll have some slides up here just showing what Surfsymphony is all about, and I'll be around having some coffee, and if any of you guys want to come up and chat to me, please do. The problem usually with having entrepreneurs come up on stage and talk about how to have a successful business is that having a successful business often is a little bit like having a successful friendship. You don't really know why it's successful, you just really like hanging out with this person you've been friends for years. Most successful entrepreneurs really just did whatever job was in front of them that day as well as they possibly can, which is a great attitude to take. But it's not necessarily very helpful when you're then trying to give advice to other people. You only really know why your friendship was successful when you look at someone else's relationship that didn't work and you notice what they didn't do that you did do. So I would encourage you to take any TED talk or including anything I say where an entrepreneur is going to hand out advice with a pinch of salt. But what I've tried to do is look at the things that we did at Surfsymphony that I saw other businesses not do, and there was that one difference, and those are the things that I think are important takeaways. So, first of all, I began teaching surfing about 25 years ago back in England, and a lot of people don't know this, but surfing is actually really popular in England. I started at the surf school where at the beginning there was 3 or 4 of us teaching. On a busy day we would have 30 people, and by the time I left nearly 10 years later there was 30 instructors, and on a busy day we would have 600 or 700 people come through the surf school. I started teaching just because I wanted to pay for surf trips to go away to Indonesia and Hawaii in the winters. But I got really interested in it because 2 things really leapt out at me. The first one was that entry-level surfing, where you're just teaching sort of beginner surfers how to stand up and riding on a wave, like perhaps a lot of you guys have tried before, is really common. You find that everywhere. And actually, although you may not know this, competitive level coaching is really common too. That's when there's a video camera on the beach and you're working with that top 1% of elite surfers. But what you don't find anywhere is something for the 98% of surfers in between. And so that's really what the idea behind Surfsymphony was. The other thing that I noticed is that the way people were teaching surfing wasn't necessarily very logical. And working as I was in a surf school where we had huge numbers of people come through, I thought I would try and get a little bit scientific about it. I was doing 4 lessons a day of groups of 10 over 10 years, which is nearly 16 or 17,000 people that I taught. And I thought, well, what if I start teaching 200 people this way and 200 people that way, and I sort of do A/B testing and I see which way works better. So I started doing that, and although I'll skip over this part of the story quite quickly, there was actually nearly a decade of doing that and really understanding what a thoughtful methodology for teaching surfing would need to look like. So I came up with this idea of trying to create what then became Surf City as a centre of surf coaching excellence for all surfers, not just the beginners and the pros. And the next big problem that I had, that I think maybe a lot of you guys will relate to in different industries, is that if you want someone to be really good at their job, it takes a long time to train them. And if you look at the data on almost any big successful company, you'll see one of the metrics that correlates most strongly with their success is how long employees stick around for. If employees stick around, they become more efficient and they become better at their job, and that's good for everybody. The trouble with trying to do a lot of businesses that operate seasonally is that when you have people who are really intelligent, capable, motivated individuals who can go and do anything, they tend not to stick around for seasonal jobs all that long. At a certain point, they want to have kids and pay mortgages and all that kind of stuff, and a year-round salary looks a lot more attractive. It takes us at Surf City about 2 to 3 years to train someone who's already a competent surfer and an experienced surf coach just to be a Surf City coach. So if we're losing people every 2 or 3 years, we never even get to finish the training, let alone give people time to go on and become excellent professionals and even mentors themselves. So the first thing they needed to do was find somewhere where we could teach surfing all the way through the year so that they could pay people a kind of salaries that could allow them to justify being career-long professional surf coaches. So I traveled all around Europe and Indonesia and Australia and Hawaii, and it was tough. And then I ended up in Rosara in Costa Rica. And a lot of people there said, well, you can't really do it here either all the way through the year because we have this dry season, which is the North American winter and is very popular, but then we have this rainy season. So, what we did, and this is, I think, a really good key to our success, is we took the emphasis away from every aspect of the experience except our one thing that was unique and special to us, which was this very technical, thoughtful, methodological surf coaching. And we said, it doesn't matter if it's raining, it doesn't matter if the roads are all muddy and most of the restaurants are shut. You're coming here just for the surf coaching, so that's what we're going to do. And that worked really, really well. So just to skate over the next 10 years fairly quickly again, I set up in my car in a car park in Rosara in 2007 with a couple of $1,000 and which went on a not very good car and some crappy old surfboards. And I started doing lessons during the day and then trying to build one of these website things in the evening that I was trying to figure out how to do. A couple of years later, we got a little shop space, and then more and more people started finding us online, so I realized we didn't need to have any presence in the high street with people walking past. I borrowed some money and bought a little bit of land, and we bought a fairly sort of basic resort where people could come and stay. Resort's probably a bit of an oversell, it's some modest convenience. And then borrowed some more money a few years later, and we've now just finished building a really beautiful high-end surf coaching resort on the edge of the nature reserve, a little walk through the trees down to the beach in Rosara, which I'm really proud of. What we haven't done intentionally is got really, really big. We changed from doing individual surf lessons to week-long surf coaching packages, which was a really good move, but now we still limit our numbers to just 12 people a week. What has changed is that where we used to charge $30 for a lesson, now we charge over $1,000 a day for people to come and stay with us. And we're booked out about 20 months in advance, and of the 12 people that can come each week, we have over 500 people on the waiting list for each week. The team has grown to 35, and we're kind of like a family, and I'll talk more about the team a little bit in a moment. But we have no intention of getting any bigger, and that business size works really, really well. So one of the reasons why we decided not to grow was because space in the ocean is a finite resource, just like every other resource that nature has to offer. And we didn't want to take up lots of space in the ocean. That surf school that I first worked at back in England, I saw what 600 people coming down the beach looked like, and how it really took over the whole beach and the whole town. and we didn't want to do that. So we made this decision to make our product better and better and better, rather than to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think it worked really well. And the nice thing about doing that is suddenly all of the other surf schools and surf camps in Nosara and in Costa Rica and all around the world stop being our competitors. We only have 444 spaces that we can sell each year, and once they're gone, they're gone. So I'm now able to have the luxury of spending time helping the other surf schools and surf camps in town get going. Sometimes that's through lending them equipment or spending time mentoring them or actually lending them money to help them get going. And then you end up living in a town where everyone's really pleased to see each other because you're not competitors trying to undercut each other, you're kind of teammates trying to support each other. And that's the kind of town that I wanted to grow old in. The other thing that we try to do is just do our thing. We do these week-long surf coaching packages, and then we don't have hotel guests come and stay with us. We don't open up our restaurant area to outside people. So again, we're not taking any business away from anyone else in town. And when people see us get really great publicity and they see Surf Simply's been in the New York Times or been in Outside Magazine, which was one of the key things which really helped raise our profile internationally, they're really happy because they know that we're going to have people coming into town who will discover Nosara, stick around after their week with us, go and visit their restaurants, go and perhaps do more surf lessons with them afterwards. So it creates this really nice community. We've tried to do everything else right with the business too. We've built a building that's LEED certified, which is, I think, the Platinum LEED certification is the highest award you can get for sustainable development. We put a lot of time and money and resources back into the community, building a local kids club. We do free surf lessons for local kids, and we provide school books for 80 of the local kids this year. And we've invested a lot of money in improving the water system in the town. So we try to do all of those things that you would expect a responsible business to do. And I do think that when businesses get going, you're always on the back foot just trying to survive. But when you cross a certain point and you're financially comfortable, you do have a responsibility to then turn around and fall over yourself to give everything that you can back to the community. So that's kind of the story of Surf Simply, but I want to talk now about some of the lessons I've learned. So there's no question that the most important part of successful business is the team that you have. And it's a lot easier to hire good people than it is to train them. You can move the needle a little bit on how someone is, but you can't completely transform someone. Someone gave me some really good advice at one point when they said, stop spending all of your time and energy focusing on your clients and your customers. Instead, spend all that time and energy focusing on your team, and then have your team focus on your clients and your customers. That then works much, much better. So I wanted to talk about the most important part of that team building process, which is hiring people. Now, the science on hiring people is actually really counterintuitive. A famous researcher called Daniel Kahneman, who some of you may have heard of, discovered that the more time we spend interviewing people, the more our own cognitive biases cause us to make bad decisions about who to employ. So actually interviewing people is not the best way to find out who is the best candidate for the job. Now, that might sound strange, and it's especially difficult if you work in the tourist business, where one of the most important skills you want people to have is the ability to be personable and talk to other people. It's very difficult to see that written on a piece of paper, so you have to interview them to see how good they are at that. So how do you square that circle? Well, we do two things. The first thing is, and we're fortunate enough that we get hundreds of applications every year to come and be coaches at Surf Simply. So the first thing we do is we make everyone jump through a few hurdles before they're even allowed to come for an interview. We make everyone go away and make a video where they have to talk to us about something that has nothing to do with surfing, and they have to make it entertaining and concise and informative and funny. And then we start interviewing people, but when we're interviewing them, we're not really seeing if they're going to be good at the job. We're interviewing them to see if they won't be bad at the job, which is different. And actually that's the best way you can interview someone. You sit them down in front of you and just let them talk. It doesn't even really matter what they're talking about. You just want to see if any red flags pop up. Do they hold any sort of slightly narcissistic or antisocial character traits that are going to cause problems further down the line? Do they hold any pseudoscientific beliefs that are going to trip them up when they're trying to get through the day? So we try and let people talk for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours over a series of interviews. And the longer that goes past without a red flag popping up, the more confident we can be that they're not going to suck. And then, of course, when you hire someone in, you want to give yourself that trial period so both you and they have got an exit strategy. But I think that's a really good way of interviewing people. Another dilemma that you have, especially running a tourist business, as a lot of these adventure tourism businesses are in very rural places, you've got to strike a balance between bringing in experts and hiring local people to help the economy. Now, if you're lucky enough to have the best people in the world at whatever the thing is you do, whatever your special thing is, if they're already right there, then you've got no problem. But it's very rare that that's the case. Usually you're not that lucky. If your thing is fishing tours, for example, then the guy in the boat next to your guests needs to know everything about fishing. He wants to be as good and as knowledgeable as the best guy in the world. He wants to know every kind of fish, every kind of line, every kind of rod. I don't know anything about fishing. So you can't compromise on that, in my opinion. You have to take that one thing that's unique to you and not compromise on it. And if that means you need to bring people in from the outside, then that's what you have to do. And then for every other aspect of the business, you want to hire people that are local, that are around you, and you want to hire people that are keen to learn and are interested and curious. Those are the two character traits that I always look for. So simply now, I feel like most of our team are as good as they can be at photography, cooking, massage, and all the other things we do. But at the start, it was just those coaches that I brought in. They had to be really, really good. And everything else, we had time for that to catch up. One thing that no one likes to stand on stages and talk about is firing people. It's an uncomfortable subject, and every entrepreneur likes to think they're a great mentor that can turn everyone into the perfect employee. In my experience, that isn't true. And when you have someone that's really causing a lot of problems in the workplace, it's your responsibility to the rest of your team to get them out. And it's funny that sometimes when you do, you look back and you think, why didn't I do that ages ago? It's like when you've been in a relationship and you eventually decide to end the relationship and you look back and you're like, yeah, I could have done that a few years earlier. So when you fire people, I think that you have to make sure that when they walk out the door, they walk out the door with two things: financial security and with dignity, with their head held high. Everyone that's around you and your team, usually they'll know why that person's been fired, but if they don't interact with each other on a daily basis and it's not obvious to them, make sure everyone knows. And everyone that's working there will see the way that you treated the person that had to go out the door. I'm a really firm believer in not having a company where it feels like someone's at the top and other people are at the bottom. So when you're firing people, it's not like you're the boss, you're in charge, you're kicking them out. When you're firing them, it's that your responsibility to everyone else who works there is to make sure that they're working with good people and they're not having to work with people that are difficult. So your responsibility to them is to take that person out of the picture. How am I doing with the translator? Right? Sometimes talk too fast. Am I doing okay? All right, good. So once you've got a team around you, I think that another really common mistake I see people make, and all first-time managers will be familiar with this, you tend to look over everyone's shoulder and sort of micromanage what they're doing. The old saying is, a chain is only as strong as the weakest link, and so as first-time managers, we tend to run around looking for those weakest links and trying to fix them all the time. I would argue that's a terrible way to do it, because what happens in reality is that you end up constantly pointing out to people what they're doing wrong. And then someone doesn't feel like, hey, this is my job that I'm amazing at. What they start feeling like is, I'm doing this thing for this other person, and I just want them to be happy and then I want to go home. So what I would advocate instead is everyone who works for you, try to find the thing that they're good at and they like doing, and then try and rearrange the logistics of the day or of the week or of the business so that they don't have to do the things that they're bad at. so that they can just do the things they're good at. It's a far better way of doing it. And then when people really feel like they're not being henpecked and they feel like they're good at what they do, they start to feel like they take ownership over their job. And that's, as a business owner, makes me feel really, really good. When I see people at Certainty start talking about Certainty as we've done this, we do this, and we started that. And actually, just as a side note, I saw that in the 3 of the people that worked for me a few years ago, and so I just gave them a slice of the company each, so now there's 4 of us having it together. And I think that was one of the smarter moves that I've made, watching them, not just those people I gave the shares to, but also everyone else really feel like it's their business and we brought the team together. So I see my job as a manager, as a boss, to allow people to spend their time doing what they're good at and what they like doing, and then to be the guy who's getting obstacles out of their way. If they need a better camera, I have to get it for them, or if their computer doesn't work, I have to get it for them. If they're working with someone that's causing them problems, I have to fix that situation too. So you're kind of, as a manager, I feel like you're a servant to everyone that works for you, trying to make their job as easy as they can so that they can just get up and run. One way that a lot of people like to try and motivate their staff, especially in the tourist business, that again I would make an argument against, is the idea of bonuses, and particularly of tipping. So this is a whole other talk that I could go on about for ages that I won't get into, but there's a lot of science on tipping, and it shows that the way people tip is racist, sexist, and ageist. And it also relies on someone walking into the business for a short amount of time and making a guess about how money should be distributed between everyone that's working there, which anyone who owns a business will know is difficult enough to do when you understand the business in every minute detail. But anecdotally, in my experiences, bonuses don't really work and tipping doesn't really work either. People are either really motivated to do a good job or they're not. And if you say to someone, all right, I'll give you a pay increase, but I'm expecting you to really step up and do a better job. In my experience, they don't. People will just do a really good job if that's the kind of person they are. If you don't pay them enough, they'll go away and do a really good job somewhere else for someone that's going to pay them more. So I would advocate falling over yourself to pay everyone as much as you possibly can. But make it a salary, make it something through the year. Try not to do tips and bonuses. That allows people to know how much money they've got coming in as well, which allows them to plan for their own lives too. Another thing that we do at Certainty is we take 17 weeks a year of vacation. So we're open for 6 weeks or 7 weeks, and then we'll shut for 2 weeks, and we're open for 6 or 7 weeks, and we shut for 2 weeks. We could make more money if we were open all the way through the year, but life is for living. And once someone has been working at Certainty for a few years, it's really difficult for them to leave. When you go somewhere else and you're like, oh, you get 2 weeks holiday a year? That's a pretty difficult gear shift to make. And we've talked about it a lot, but we're all at an income level that we're happy with, and we get to have that time off to go live and explore the world. And again, that's something that I think is the right balance, and I wouldn't change that either. One other thing I think you need to be aware of with employees, especially in the adventure tourism industry, is that if you have someone really good and they're working for you, it's quite likely that at some point they're going to want more. So I think you have a responsibility to take away the glass ceiling for people. So what we do, and I'm not saying this mechanism works for other businesses, but the way we've solved that problem at Certainty is we have what we call satellite projects, where although we're based in Rosara in Costa Rica, we do a few weeks every year at different locations around the world. This year we did one at Surf Ranch, Cali State's pool in California. We did one in Mexico, we've done Peru, Indonesia, France, different places. But the way it works is that usually one of the coaches, actually anyone in the team, can take the Certainty team, fill the spots using the Certainty brand, and then basically run their own mini business where they assume the risks and they keep all the profits, and they get to be an entrepreneur for that 1 week. And then if they want to take that model and they want to run with it, then they can go and do that, and the business expands, and that works really well for us. But usually what happens is people come back after doing 1 or 2 and they go, wow, that was actually a lot of work, and I really like being here and having my 17 weeks off to get I think I'll just knock that on the head and say here. But taking that glass ceiling away means that they come back really happy, not feeling like they're constrained in any way, and actually it means that they have much better peripheral awareness about what the guest experience is like, because they've had to think about everything. The best way to get people to do what you want them to do is to have everyone else do it too. So there's been a lot of research, and a lot of it around environmental things like water use. They did a study of watering lawns in Texas, or towel use, how often people want to change their towels when they're in a hotel room. And they wanted people to use less water and to have their towels washed less often, just because it's better for the environment. And they tried lots of different ways of convincing people to do it. They would try telling people that it's much better for the environment if you do this. They would try saying to people that you can save money if you do this. And they tried the emotional tag on children. They'd say, think about the world you want to leave for your kids. But do you know what by far the most effective way to get people to do positive steps was just to tell them that everyone else was already doing it. So in hotels, when they said most people don't wash their towels every day, then people just followed that example. And the same thing was true when they put up a map of all of the houses in Texas, and they put a brown dot over the house when they were not watering their lawn, which was good, and a green dot over the house if they were spending a lot of water watering their lawn and they had a green one. And sure enough, they found that if a street had all brown houses and one green dot, very quickly that person was shamed into not using so much water. But it also went the other way too. So we're very social primates, and the best way to get people to behave any way that you want is just to have everyone around them behave the same way. So when we first start a business as a business owner, it feels often like you've got this cart, and the cart is full of all of your employees, and you're the one pulling the cart along. You're the one who's having to provide all the momentum and all the energy, the impetus for getting better and moving forward. And if you hire well and you're lucky, at some point someone else will jump out of that cart and they'll come and pull the cart with you. And then someone else will, and then someone else will. And at a certain point, more than half the people have got out of the cart and they're pulling it with you, if you can bear with me with this metaphor. And then suddenly, when that tipping point happens, I remember it very clearly, it said something about 5 years ago, everyone who's sitting in the cart suddenly goes, oh, most people don't sit in the cart, most people are getting out and they're running under their own steam. And suddenly the whole thing takes on a life of its own. You don't need to look over people's shoulders because everyone is concentrating on trying to be the best that they possibly can be at whatever their job is. And now at Surf City, I believe that's true for everyone in the team. And no one gets chastised or told off if they don't bring an attitude to work. But everyone does, just because it would be kind of socially awkward if they didn't. Sort of not trying to be as good as the best person in the world at whatever you're doing, whether it's teaching surfing or teaching yoga or giving a massage or cooking a meal, would be socially awkward at Surf City in the way that if you showed up to a party and you were the only one in a fancy dress costume, it would just be kind of awkward. So I want to spend just a couple of minutes talking very quickly about marketing. I know we've spoken about it a lot already today, and I think that was really insightful and fascinating. I just wanted to add two things that I think are useful. So, a lot of the time you'll hear people talk about wanting to do storytelling, using social media, put pictures out there, and all that kind of stuff, and it can be overwhelming and intimidating. I would advocate, instead of doing that, instead of thinking, what am I going to put out there, what pictures should I put out, I would do it the other way around. I would concentrate on building something really great, a really great experience, and then all you have to do is just show it to people, just let people see it. And a good little litmus test for yourself is to think, when someone comes and visits my business and they go away and they're having a dinner party with their friends, what cool story am I giving them to say at that dinner party? What cool story can they tell about their experience here? If you spend time actually building something really cool, and I like to think what we've built is this unique technical surf coaching experience, then you want to think of the way that your online marketing as leaving clues all around the internet, little breadcrumbs everywhere, and people can find those clues and piece together themselves what your business is, rather than, I would argue it's not so good to just stick up a 10% off, come and stay here kind of advert. It's not nearly as compelling. Let people find you for themselves, let them put the pieces together. So we have, for example, our TripAdvisor reviews that show one side of Surf Simply. Photographs, Instagram, another. We make movies every week on YouTube. We have a podcast where the coaches come on every couple of weeks and we talk about a whole range of topics and people can get to know them through that. We've been fortunate enough to have some really good press in Outside Magazine and the New York Times and other magazines. And when people find all these things and they put them all together. So I think that's a really good way of thinking about your online strategy. Build a cool thing, everyone sees a different angle of it through a different keyhole, through all those different portals online, and then they put it all together in their head. But if the thing that you have isn't real, if it was all kind of smoke and mirrors, then they'll be able to see that when they look through all of those portals. The other thing I would advocate is under-promising. So it's simply on the website, it says that there's only 8 coaches, actually we have 9. It says there's the chef, actually we have 4. It says you get a massage each week, actually you get 2. So be really careful of over-promising online and having people underwhelmed when they arrive. I would always argue under-promise and then give yourself room to over-deliver when people get there. So the final thing I want to talk about, and I've nearly finished, thanks for bearing with me, is decision making and business goals. So I heard someone once describe decision making when you're running a business as just systematically trying to avoid catastrophe. And I think that's a good way of thinking about running a business. As long as it's not catastrophic, you can live to make a wrong or a right decision another day. What I would argue is that when you're making decisions, try and make them on data, not on how you feel about it. If you make decisions based on information, on data, don't ever go with your hunch. You'll sleep better, and if it turns out to have been a wrong decision, when you look back, you can look yourself in the mirror and go, well, you know, I made the best decision I did with the information that I had at the time. The other thing I would advocate in decision making is you don't always know where your business is going to take you and in what way you're going to have to pivot. But I would advocate making decisions that open more doors than they close. If you've ever got 2 options in front of you, whichever one is going to give you more options in the future, make that decision, go down that road. So the final thing I say is that the most common comment that I get from guests who stay at Surf Simply each week is, when are you going to open another one, when are you going to expand, why don't you do more of these? And as I said at the start of the talk, we're not going to. And there's really a couple of reasons why. The first reason is that making Surf Simply better is really fun. Like right now with surf coaching, they're bringing virtual reality and augmented reality, and there's so much we can do in it. It's just really, really fun making it better and better. Little incremental changes every week that goes past. The idea of duplicating, of creating a PDF that this is how you do a Surf Simply and then mimicking it across the board, to me it doesn't sound like so much fun. But doing the latter might be right for some people. The 2 rewards that it of course brings you is potentially a lot more money. And it feels good as well. There's a lot of prestige of owning a really big brand that you don't get when you own a small brand. Now some people will tell you that money doesn't make you happy. That's not true. Money does make you happy. And the way it makes you happy is very specific in like this. Number 1, a lack of money can make you really unhappy. But number 2, if you have money, then you can pay people to spend time doing the things that you don't want to spend time doing. And you can spend time doing the things that you love. The same is true of that kind of reputation, the ego, the prestige. I'm so proud of Surf Simply. Being able to stand on the stage and tell you guys about it means the world to me. It feels really good. But both of those things reach a point of diminishing returns. You know, it's good to build something that you're proud of. It feels good for the ego. But after a while, it's more and more work for less and less reward. And the same is true of money. There was a famous study a few years ago that showed that in San Francisco, around $60,000 a year, you have to adjust that for where you are in the world, there was a point at which, when salary went up, happiness didn't keep going up at quite the same speed. So I would advocate drawing a line consciously for yourself. What is enough? What's enough money? what's enough of an ego boost. I'm fortunate because I live quite modestly, I just like buying lots of surfboards. So I've got enough money to do that, and that's okay. The other thing that I would say that should prompt you to think twice before necessarily wanting to expand and grow your business, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't expand and grow your business, only that it shouldn't be the default, it should be a thoughtful decision you make. The other big factor is this. The longest running scientific study that I think exists, study that I'm aware of, is being headed up by a guy called Robert Waldinger out of Harvard University. And it actually began nearly 75 years ago, and they tracked the lives of over 700 Harvard graduates and young men from Boston, some of the poorest guys around with no advantages in life. And they tracked them over the course of their life to measure the success of their life by every metric they could think of. They looked at criminality and health, and self-reported happiness, and how long their relationships were. And they were trying to see what makes a good life. And above all of the noise in the data, the one thing that rose above everything else was how good the quality of the relationships were with the people that they spent the most time with. And interestingly, it didn't matter if they were married or if they had kids. It just mattered how well they got on, how supportive and how positive the relationships were with the people they spent the most time with. And as you guys probably know, the people you spend the most time with are mostly the people you work with. So my next big business goal for Certainly is I want everyone to have really good relationships with each other. We know, science tells us that's the best way to have a happy life. And to not do that, I think, seems like craziness. Okay, so I think we have some pictures up on the screen, some of them taken by my partner Marie, who's hanging around somewhere and is our photographer at Certainly. And there's some images of the building, so we're going to scroll through them. And any of you guys that would like to come up and chat to me and talk about any of this stuff, I'd be really happy to talk to you. But thank you so much for your time, everyone. It's been a real privilege to be here.